Everyone, happy Monday. I hope you're all well. Thank you to everyone that liked and subscribed over the weekend. Everyone around the world who liked and subscribed, thank you very much. A shout out to Bob in Canada, because you're going to get on me if I don't mention you again, aren't you? So I remembered you this time, Bob. Another quite busy weekend of boxing. As usual on a Monday, I don't do a full results roundup of every fight on every card. Joe Stoner, G-Man, they do that sort of stuff. I do my own. The things that stuck out to me, kind of talking points, that's what I'll cover on a Monday on our little sit down. First of all, fights were most of them on DAZN this weekend. Garcia fight was on DAZN, the fights in Ireland were on DAZN. When are DAZN going to add a cast button to the app to make it easier to throw to a TV? iPlayer's got it, YouTube got it, all the other major things you'd want to ping to a TV. Get a cast button, but DAZN still just haven't got around to that. They need to get with the program, don't they? Right, first of all, the performance of the weekend for me was quite comfortably Jordan Gill. When it comes to, first off, let's say that the move to super feather seems to have done him the world of good. He looks reborn almost. If it had that up till that point, the point of the subs, I had that really wide, personally. For Gill, now this is the odd thing. This is going back to the video I made last week about how judges' scorecards can differ greatly, and a lot of people just won't seem to understand it. Now, I don't usually watch someone else's fight review before I do the review of the same fight myself, because I don't want to be influenced by anyone else's kind of reviews. I want that to taint my view of what I've seen. But Joe Stunner put his review up of this, and he reviewed the fight. Now, in Joe Stunner's review, Joe said, and I don't want to misquote Joe or incorrectly reinterpret what he said, but Joe essentially said that he gave quite a few of the middle rounds to Conlan because Gill was almost too relaxed and he just gave away a lot of the play, if you like, to Conlan, and Conlan sort of took them rounds for Joe on the much higher work rate. Now, that's quite a correct way to score it. So Joe got that right. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm not, because Joe got that absolutely correct. And this is where the subjectivity of boxing scoring comes into play and what a lot of people don't understand. Now, I gave Conlan a share of the first, and the only round I gave him clearly was the 6, in which, yes, his output was a lot better, and he did land a few telling clean combinations. Gill just seemed to sort of really take his foot off in that round, to the extent of, for me, Conlan clearly taking the round. So myself and Joe Steiner, we both saw, visually, we saw the same fight, and we saw the same outcomes in terms of output and work in those rounds. But I saw it as, and like I said, I gave him a share of the first and I gave him the 6. He was lucky in the end of the 6, I think it was. He threw a little elbow after the bell, and he's lucky to have a point taken off of that. But it seemed from very early on for me, Gill had felt what Conlan had in terms of power and was quite confident in the fact that he knew he couldn't get hurt by Conlan. In which case it allowed him to, and I'm sure this was the game plan, I'm pretty sure they mentioned it afterwards, it allowed Gill to stand in range in the pocket most of the time, knowing that he was kind of safe in being there because Conlan couldn't hurt him. And it allowed him to, and that's quite what, as Joe said, Conlan would throw and have success with more volume because of it. But what it allowed Gill to do was, it meant that Gill was always in range by staying in the pocket to throw his less volume but more effective work after every exchange. He never had to find a range, step back into the range to land his own more effective combinations, of which there were fewer. But I had him, Conlan didn't really throw anything other than the 6 that really had any effect. If his work ultimately wasn't effective, it wasn't hurting Gill, where you got the impression, and you could see it quite evidently, that everything Gill threw and landed flush and clean had a physical effect on Conlan, as with the knockdowns, And as on a few occasions, he looked quite scrambled. He was the heavier punches, and his punches had more effect than what Conlan's did. There were less of them. And the fact that Conlan was getting off and landing more punches because Gill was staying in range and allowed himself to be caught, in a sense, it was almost part of Gill's plan, and it's what ultimately led to victory for Gill. So I thought that was an amazing display, an amazing game plan that worked to a T. And like I said, mine and Joe's cards would probably have been two or three rounds different, but we both scored it correctly within the within the way that you score boxing, the way boxing scoring is structured, and the things you can score on. Me and both, even though me and Joe would have scored certain rounds differently, we would be correct in the way we scored them. And I thought that was very interesting. Joe's review of the fight was fantastic. It's always great work from Joe. He's a very astute, spectator of the game, a student of the game. He's great, Joe. So I've got a lot of respect. But yeah, I just hope that makes it clear on how two judges can score a fight correctly within the sort of rules of how you score a boxing match, but it can mean that some judges' cards will be different. So yeah, Jordan Gill, and then he went on to explain the depression he went through and the time that he was close to committing suicide. And this is what you can do if you refuse to be a victim and you take the hard route, which is the fight against it, rather than taking the easy route, which is being a victim of it. This is what you can achieve, and I think that should be a lesson for everyone. So hats off to Jordan Gill, fantastic. Really, really great. Conlan, again, as Joe said, does he look to be on his way to being shot? I can't argue otherwise, can you? It kind of seems that way. But yeah, in terms of the performances, that's where the nuance really comes into boxing. And that's why I believe boxing is really, from the fighting to the judging, it truly is the most cerebral sport out there. So yeah, really, really good. Jordan Gill, fantastic. Hope he goes on. Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, that as Eddie said, that will now they'll hopefully try and get him a world title shot. Now, him versus Cordina could be a great fight. I really like Joe Cordina. He's a really stylish boxer, isn't he? He's a good puncher, really slick boxer. That could be a great fight, really good fight. So yeah. Moving on, I suppose the other big name you would say this weekend is Garcia v Duarte. First of all, Duarte was very obvious in his approach, wasn't he? His attacks were quite crude and without sort of any real invention. He telegraphed a lot of his attacks. Garcia. There's a lot. Firstly, let me just say with Garcia, in a time where we seem to have a problem with fighters fighting other top fighters, you've got to take your hat off and give credit to Garcia for fighting Tank Davis at the point of Garcia's career, because Tank Davis is arguably, would you call him the best power counter puncher in the game? He's certainly up there. He's certainly a pound for pounder, isn't he? So there's no shame in Garcia getting, all right, we can argue about the manner, when you're physically able to get up from a shot and you choose not to. I suppose technically you can cause that quitting, though I don't like quitting used in that context. But Garcia, undoubtedly, he's a fantastic offensive power puncher, isn't he? That's not in doubt. You can hear when his shots thud home that he is a puncher. But defensively, he's far from complete, isn't he? And in the commentary, they said he can't box on the back foot. There was a portion in one round, I think he done it twice, I noticed, where he was actually moving backwards and landed good jabs and followed up with a good right hand. So he can box on the back foot. I've seen him do it, not many occasions, but he can. But he does seem to then display not being able to box on the back foot, because he will move away on the back foot and then he'll almost omit from throwing any punches, but makes it appear like he can't box on the back foot. And he also uses, he tries to use a shoulder roll. And as he's doing it, he's almost sort of turning the back completely. So his back is almost facing the opponent, like turning his back on the opponent. And then it leaves him open to a hook from the other angle. It's really odd. It's like an amateur tactic, or someone who hasn't learnt to box defensively yet. The kind of the way they do it as an almost not a trained but a natural instinct to turn away from the pressure, which is really weird with Garcia. And he's on what, 3 trainers now he's had. So I'm not decided on Garcia. Are you? I think he's proved his ability to operate at the elite level whilst not actually being elite himself. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that? But yeah, it was compared to the Gill Conlan fight. I mean, these are the 2 fights that sort of stuck out to me and thought I should cover this weekend. It was quite a dull fight as well, wasn't it? There wasn't with Jordan Gill. He displayed so many positive qualities that were notable, and he looked great in so many ways. From the way he used discipline to stick to a game plan, to the way he executed it, and then the technical greatness almost in which he deployed it. But with Garcia, there was never really anything that great about what he did, and Duarte was very limited as well, wasn't he? So, I don't know. Like I say, credit to Garcia for. I'll tell you what as well. There's also with Garcia, almost you could argue that his backers don't back him. It's like an employer that shows a vote of no confidence in an employee, with Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy. So fair play to him, Garcia. I don't want to get his back too much. Like I always say, I respect every fight, but we've got to look at their performances objectively, and that was just mine. So that was that. What else did we get as well? I tell you what. I saw an interview with Amir Khan on, I think it might have been, it was on IFL. I think it was on IFL. Yeah, it was on IFL. And now, when Amir Khan was a boxer, I was never a massive fan of Amir Khan. His style reminded me of a very good amateur boxing professional. That's what he reminded me of. So I never really took to him as a fighter, not the kind of fighter I warmed to stylistically. But he was talking, regardless, now I think he's a top bloke. When I listen to him speak, I find him really likeable, and I've really warmed to him. So Amir Khan, bit of a fan of the man. I quite like him. Quite a decent fellow, I find. But now going back to the old Conor Ben, steroid use allegation, blah blah. Amir Khan made a quote where he said, "I saw Ben in Manchester a while ago, and he looked huge." That's not really. I can imagine Ben thinking, "Shut up, Amir," because that's not really how you want to be described when you've been accused of using performance enhancing drug, is it? He looked huge. Yeah, nice one, Amir. And then, probably lastly this week, I made a video last week concerning sort of Jake Paul and the Misfits boxing stuff, and I talked about how Jake Paul, what he should have done after the Tommy Fury fight was possibly fight another live pro prospect, maybe of about the same level. Well, he's seemingly done that for his next fight. I forgot. So I just read this late, so I don't know the guy's name, but I think he's fighting a guy who's 10-1. And Paul himself said the respected boxing fraternity won't take me seriously, and I get shit off them for not fighting boxers. And then his own fan base have now hauled him to task because he's now fighting someone who they have never heard of, a 10-0 prospect. So can't win, can he? But for me, I think that's the right thing. So well done, Jake Paul. That's kind of it, fellas, and the small 0.2% of ladies that watch. That's about it. Look, I'll tell you other things. Going back to the Jordan Gill fight, Barry Jones had Conlan up 3-1 after 4. And I just found that way out. I gave Gill, I gave Conlan a share of the first, so I could have possibly given the first even, but I certainly gave the next 3 to Gill. So how Barry Jones got through. But there you go. Again, that depends how an individual likes to interpret a fight. Anyway, that's it. I hope that was all right. It seemed ages being away for the weekend. I probably was get a video out of the weekend. But that's it. As always, if you're watching and you've watched again and you might watch again, hit the subscribe bell. That's it. That's all you got to do. For me, you watch more than once, you've been here before, hit the subscribe bell. It's not going to do you any harm. One day I might produce an amazing piece of content and you're not going to see it. So anyway, that's it. As I say, thanks to everyone who's not subscribed. If you haven't already, again, like and subscribe. That's it. I'm out.